Hi, everyone, and welcome back to BakedHR. I am Jasmine Wilkes here with my BakedHR co-host, Christina Minyard. How are you doing tonight, Christina?
Hello, Jasmine. I am doing well. How are you?
I am tired but ready for this conversation with our guest tonight.
Yes, I'm so excited. We have Karen Eber with us tonight. We were just talking about how we first met, and it was, of course, on Twitter. Because we both have a love for the hills and Laguna Beach, which then turned into a great conversation about Jessica Simpson's book that she did not write.
Trying to get you to read. Have you read it yet? It's a fine piece of literature.
It is on my list. I'm determined though, soon. So Karen, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Hi, I am Karen Eber. So happy to be here with you both. I am the owner of Eber Leadership Group, which is a boutique talent development company that focuses on helping companies imagine and evolve how they're shaping their culture. And that includes how you're building your leaders and creating healthy teams and transforming culture in a day-to-day environment or at the corporate level, and of course, storytelling. And you don't get through that without talking about toxic workplaces. So I'm happy to share experiences and stories and hopefully some tips that make it better for people.
Absolutely. So we shared with you when we first kind of tossed this topic out there to our followers, like we received so much feedback, so many questions, so many comments, so many stories. We, all three of us on this chat right now, have our own stories of toxic workplaces. So I just think that this is a topic that we're going to be digging into for a while, unfortunately.
Yeah, sadly, we did get a lot of responses though from the toxic workplace story that we put up, and I'm still looking over them now. It's surprising, well, not really, how much so many of them are kind of the same. In situations, a lot of them are based around leadership, and the type of leaders people have had in their roles. And then some of it is just based on the family culture at work. I can let it go by without us talking about the families tonight.
The patterns, I think sometimes people think like toxic culture means at the company level, it's toxic, but toxic really can come down to the leader. I always try to explain that your culture is going to differ team to team because your experience differs on one team. Like if you think of Harvard University, you can picture brick and ivy and a feeling of what Harvard might be, but the feeling in the College of Engineering is probably really different than the feeling of the College of Literature, but they're both under Harvard. And the same thing happens in a company, right? The feeling in a company at the company level, it has an overall vibe and experience, but on the individual teams, it's going to differ by function, it's going to differ by work, and it's going to differ by leader. And so in the same company, you can have an incredibly toxic team and an amazing team. And that's why I think you see it so often, because leadership is a huge indicator of it, because your culture is the worst behavior that your leader is tolerating or committing. And it's something that people just are going to continually face. So unfortunately, it is something that we see, and it's most often coming from lack of leadership skills and so many things that are just allowed to happen. So I'm sorry to hear that the inbox is full, but it's true. It's there. It's a part of work that has to be dealt with.
Yeah, and that makes me think when you were just talking about leadership, because Christina knows, and this is a topic that we're going to cover as well, but me stepping into my new role, I have a great boss. And one of the things he's pushing me to do, and I keep telling him, like, I've only been here a month, like, I need you to chill. Like, this is great, but I need you to chill. But he's telling me he wants me to really and truly be a leader of the organization and not just a worker bee. And so when we talk about toxic workplaces, some people haven't been taught how to be a leader. They haven't seen great leadership. And so that's one thing that for me is trying to figure out, how do I truly become a great leader for not just, my organization, but overall.
Mhm. It's really common, right? Because if you haven't been given any development on it, your first thing is, well, what have I experienced? Like, what's really worked well for me? So when it's been role modeled really well, and that's something that time and care is put into, you can create like this leadership engine in a company where you keep creating all these really great leaders because it's role modeled really well. But most people don't have that. That's, so rare. And so the challenge then is, how are you helping people first understand where their own default behaviors are? Because if you know where your natural thinking patterns are, what you're going to think of first, or how you're going to make a decision, or what happens when you go under pressure, you at least have that understanding about yourself, so that when you're interacting with other people and you start to hit conflict, you know what you're going to do, which then makes it so much easier to then stop and think, okay, what does my team need? What do other people need? And from there, there's layers of different things that can definitely happen. But I think like in the past year, so many companies struggled going to virtual work because the leaders just had no idea, like, how am I supposed to lead when I don't see people if we're used to seeing them every day? How am I supposed to do these things? And that came down to like, yeah, this is why we've got a leadership crisis. We've got to help people understand these things.
So I've told Jasmine this before, but mostly the way that I've learned to be a leader is by having bad leaders and just doing the opposite of what,
Totally.
because, I think in HR, we are in a unique position where we can see the leadership behavior, and then we get to see close up and usually some pretty honest feedback, how that leadership behavior really truly affects the team. Because they end up coming to us when they are in crisis mode, or when they've had enough, or when they don't know what to do next. So it's easy to take what I've seen and the feedback of how it's affected people, and then build a plan to do kind of the opposite of that. Because I really haven't had, great leaders. And I think at some point in my career, I told myself, you have to stop, Christina, stop going into these positions and looking at the CEO like they know everything they need to know. I've always been lucky enough to be in roles where I was not very far removed from the CEOs, a lot of times reporting directly to the CEOs. And so I naturally want you to know everything about the business and how things are happening and have solutions, because you're at the top of the organization. But I had to kind of flip that switch and be like, I mean, it'd be nice if they knew everything, but they're people too. But then I went from that to an extreme example. And so I know there are good CEOs out there. I know there are good leaders, but, we've had a lot of touch points with some kind of shady ones.
So this is like the line I straddle, because I do have great empathy for that, right? A lot of CEOs had this idea or this expertise that they then turned into this awesome opportunity, and it grew and grew, and they've got this company and it's exploded, and now it's, their dream. But they don't have any of maybe the focus on how to develop people or pay attention to people or interact with people, right? They're just really deep in their technical expertise. And that's fair. We are not well-rounded. Nobody should try to be well-rounded. That just isn't realistic. But you have accountability, you are running a company. So if you are not well-rounded in that way, then you need to bring people in and surround yourself with people that are, and you need them to advise you, and you need to take it into account. And so it's a line, because this is the work I do, right? I have great empathy for it. And I lose patience with, but I don't have that. Okay, but you're still accountable. So let's figure out how you make up for that, and how you can still make sure people get what they need, because the Popeye syndrome, I am what I am,
So I had a CEO at one point who like kind of recognized that their management style was not conducive to retention. And we had several talks about it. I always give honest feedback, sometimes to my own demise, you know. But at the end of the day, the solution that that CEO wanted above all else was to put somebody in the middle, like remove his direct reports so that he wasn't running them off.
Yeah.
And I couldn't get him to understand, but whoever you're managing is still absorbing all of that from you.
Yeah.
And even if they don't give that to the team right away, they eventually will, because a person can only take so much. And, you know, and you can't come in here and treat everyone like your, you know, middle school kids who, you know, didn't do their chores and scream at them and ground them. Like, these are adults who don't want to be screamed at and don't want to manage your mood swings and don't want to, you know, keep guessing which version of you are we going to get.
Yeah.
Because it's exhausting. I mean, I know plenty of people have experienced that, but I've experienced it personally. And I just know, like, sometimes I couldn't do anything until I got that conversation of the day out of the way, because I didn't know what I was preparing for.
Yeah. The research on the worst kind of leader actually isn't the leader that screams and pitches a fit. It's the leader that is the inconsistent leader, for exactly what you said, because your energy isn't going towards the work. It's going towards which version of this person is showing up today. How do we plan versions A, B, and C for every meeting with them? Like, and you're exhausted. And that's what leads to the toxic environment, because you lose your resilience. Like, your ability to bounce back from that gets less and less and less. And then that impacts all your work. It impacts your life. You start to even physically, you know, have exhaustion and adrenal fatigue, and it shows up in so many ways that, and it also sometimes, you know, paralyzes you into thinking, I can't figure out what to do, or maybe I'm not going to be able to find something else. So it does a huge toll on people. That inconsistent leader is just awful.
I mean, and what you just said is no exaggeration, probably like a perfectly painted picture of the environment that I'm referencing, just because, like, I remember having like sidebar conversations with the team. And we literally would do that. Is it going to be A, B, or C today? And if it's A, we say this. If it's B, we say this. If it's C, we say this. Because everyone felt it and everyone picked up on the patterns, and everyone was just like, it can go this way or it can go that way. And really, if it goes that way, we need to shut it down and just all get out of the meeting as soon as possible. And, you know, and I get it. Like, if I screw something up or I drop the ball in a big project, then I don't expect to like just skate out of there, like, without that being addressed. But it really was just difficult when, and especially in the HR role, if I am counseling everyone who's impacted by that, I don't shut it off when that meeting's over. I relive it again and again with each manager who comes to me trying to figure out how to navigate that, or saying, hey, I'm kind of at the end of my rope. What do I do next? And so sometimes it would consume my entire day, and then I would have to do my actual job at night. And so there's that.
Can you imagine like how different that would have been? Like, think of the hours wasted on that could have just gone to the work. And the problem with that is, you know, neurologically, when all that's happening, your brain's releasing cortisol and your body is saying, danger, get away. This is a bad situation. And it is coded in your brain. It's stored in your memory. So that the next time it happens, you're immediately like bracing yourself, and you just get into this cycle. Which is probably why, you know, whenever we've all left a toxic situation, the full imprint of it doesn't make its mark until we're past it. And then we can see like, man, was I exhausted? How did I not see? Well, you didn't see because your body was protecting you and keeping you a little bit numb because you just can't handle the swings all the time. You need to be out of it to release it. So there's, it's not just the morale, it's the, what happens to you chemically and physically and how that impacts your entire life. That ugh, life is too short.
Which is because I went from a role where I worked like less than 10 minutes from where I live, like so close, to a role that I have a true commute now, like over 30 minutes to get to work. And while I think I told somebody this, it might have been Christina, but I'm tired when I get home from work now, but it's a different type of tired. It's a productive tired. It's me feeling like I actually did work today and not just I'm tired because like I laid around my office because I was literally begging someone, come in my office, tell me you need something, need me to do something, or going out on the warehouse floor saying, is there something you want? A question that I could ask or answer for you. So it's a different type of tired, but it's a tired that motivates me as a person who hates waking up morning and who loves to sleep. It motivates me to get out of the bed at 5:30 in the morning because I'm like, hey, I need to go to work today. I have things that I need to do. And it's not just a checklist of things that I need to do. It's things that I am enjoying doing. So that it's different how it does affect your body. And we did have someone who wrote in and was telling us that they would get so sick that they actually had to go to the emergency room, I believe, and their doctor was like, you have to stop.
Yeah.
And they were just like, I don't know. I know I need to tell my boss that I need to stop, but I don't know how to stop.
Right. That's that paralysis of like, I can't even stop and think what I do different or how I get a different job. Or I think the added complication where people have been able to work virtually in this past year, they're now having these days in their home, right? Whether your camera's on or not, if you're getting yelled at or you're in this toxic environment, it's now in your home. You don't have that commute to shake it off. And then like where you're spending all of your time starts to feel really heavy too. So everyone knows it's bad, but it's extra complicated. And I'm glad you are in a role you like now.
Thank you.
Jasmine, when I texted you the other day and you were at work at 7 a.m., I was like, she really is loving this job.
That's so cool. But it goes to show you, right? So if you were in your toxic situation, if you stopped and thought, well, if I get another job, I'll have to get up at 5:30 and be in the office at 7, like, could you even get your head around that?
No, even because I mean, like I said, I used to work like less than 10 minutes from work and I was late every single day. Every single day. And now it's like, maybe I'm supposed to be there at 8 or maybe I'm supposed to be there at 9, but I'm making myself like I get up earlier and I get there earlier. And the day flies by to me. It seems like while I'm working, it rolls around and I'm like, how is it 2:00 already? Which like I said, it's, I don't know if it's the honeymoon phase because it's only been a month, but it's completely different.
And are you starting to feel really that imprint of, well, I'm making an assumption that might not be fair. Was the environment you left not enjoyable to you? Like, are you now seeing the comparison of, whoa, now I can really see that for what it was and have clarity on what I want?
In some ways, yes, definitely. It wasn't, a horrible environment at all times, but it definitely had its moments and days.
It just wasn't right for you.
Yeah. And just the difference,
yeah.
No one has that. And this, this is very weird to me, but no one within the first week of me, working there, no one asked me if I was married. No one asked me, if I have kids. And that was a constant conversation that I had at my previous job. And I was just like, why do y'all need to know? No
Right.
one asked me, when are you getting married? When's the wedding date? And I'm just like, why do y'all keep ask me a HR related question? Don't ask me about my personal life every time I come into this building.
Right.
So, just small things like that is even just like, I'm grateful that I can now say that I can focus on the work in my career of being, um, a up and coming and a better HR professional.
I'm sure your friends and family too are noticing a difference in you.
Well, I mean, Christina said she couldn't believe that I was up and at work at 7 a.m. So.
There you go.
Knowing that she has that commute and she was there, she was like, I just pulled into work, and I was like, triple checking I was like, did the time change again? What is happening? So all of that though is like super exciting, because I think, and I've always felt this way, like as a recruiter, it's okay if you're not a fit for an environment, but
Totally.
I've always struggled with, trying to work with hiring managers on getting them to understand that. One time I worked somewhere where so many of the managers had been at that organization for like 20 to 30 years. So it was even more difficult to get them to understand that like people leave jobs because they did not leave jobs. So they didn't have the same experience. And gosh, for at least half of my career, culture has been like a hot topic, and we want a culture fit. We want to recruit culture fits, but sometimes it's so difficult to get the organization to accept that a person can make that call for themselves as well. So, maybe to that example, Jasmine says, I wasn't the right fit there, for their culture, good or bad, whatever it was. But if she's interviewing with the next organization, they might just automatically be concerned that, oh, maybe you won't be a culture fit here too. But you have to, I don't know, we kind of touched on this on Sunday night in the IG Live. And even as an experienced recruiter, I still don't know the right way to always answer that question. And I'm up against that now. Because
The question of why are you looking? Or why did you leave?
Why did you leave? What happened? And when you leave a toxic workplace, and I think that no matter how bad, you still can't bash the organization. Like I'll say here locally, there's one organization in town that everyone knows is terrible. Everyone knows it's awful. Okay. Like the FBI raided them. Like it's a big, like everyone knows it's awful.
All right.
But even though we all know that, it's still a turnoff if someone comes in and immediately starts bashing that organization instead of trying to draw from, here's what I gained while I was there, and here's why it was time to go.
Yeah. I like to equate it to like if you're dating someone, you're on a first date and you've left a significant relationship. And so, of course, the question is going to come up like, why didn't it work out? Your goal is, assuming you like the person is going okay, is to get to a second date. Your goal is not to share every intimate detail, because quite honestly, the person hasn't earned the right to hear it. So I think when you get this question in a job, you're going to get it. So plan for it. Absolutely. Right. That's always the number one question of why are you looking? Why are you looking to leave where you're at? I love the way you answered it in the Instagram Live. My rule is make it about yourself. So it's never about the company. It's always about yourself. And I think what you described was the perfect example of, I realized, my values and skills weren't a fit with where the company was going, that there were other people that were a better fit, and it was a great time to step back. So I think rule one, make it about yourself, never about the company. And I think that it's very common to realize that you have outgrown a role, or you're not in line with the direction or strategy of the company or anything like that. I think you want to also include, I learned a lot from the experience, because I think that sentence shows reflection. It shows you've learned. It's not this like, I can't fit in anywhere. It's got into a situation that just wasn't right for me anymore. And I learned a lot from it. Now they're probably going to say, great, what did you learn? So I think being able to talk about what you are looking for in your next company is a great transition. Well, I learned I really value these types of things, or I learned that in my next role, I want to make sure that the environment I'm in has this, or I have a bunch of questions that I want to be able to ask you about your culture. You will probably get the recruiter that's like trying to dig for the fun. And I just think the best thing to do in those moments are to again say, like, I learned so much from that experience, and it's taught me things that I'm looking for in my next role. And I have questions I'd love to ask you when it's my turn to get to that. And so you don't have to go through the details. They haven't earned the right to hear it. They may never hear the right to hear it. That's your choice. But focus it on what you want out of your next role. And don't ask, like, what is the culture here? I hate it when people ask that. We teach people to ask that, and it's the worst thing because it's lame, honestly. There's just so many other better questions to ask. Like, what is the culture here? What do you think you're going to get? The culture is trust and transparency and integrity and whatever other things are in the lobby with the eagle flying over it. And like, I've sat in interviews where people say that, and then you ask them an example and they completely contradict it because they just don't know what to answer. So the better thing is, like, ask the recruiter or the hiring manager, more importantly, specific questions, just like they're asking you. For a hiring manager, like, really great question. Tell me about a time that a team member changed your mind, because you can see, like, can they come up with something? Do they believe they have all the answers, or are they open to hearing different perspectives? And you're also going to hear, are you a data person? Are you this or that? So there's like a bunch of different questions like that, which we can link in the show notes, that people can leverage. That's going to give you a sense of what's really valued and what's important to you. And you'll, of course, have some of your own.
That's a really good question. I just wrote it down. I really like it. So as the recruiter who's fishing for information on this side of the table, when you have to tell that story, this experience has been very eye-opening for me, because I can very vividly remember times where people gave me those kind of answers, like, my values weren't in line with their values, blah, blah, blah. It's time for me. I outgrew this position, whatever it was. And I was like,
Yeah, of course, right? Because they're then going to think, like, okay, are you a delicate flower that is now going to get into our organization and have the same situation? Which is why I think where you can shift it to what you're looking for, what you want, right? You want to just get over that piece as quick as possible. I do think there is more of a shift that is happening where people are in multiple roles in their career and people get it. I think a reckoning is coming after the people get their vaccines and there's a return to work, whatever that is, when companies are like, come back into the office. I think we're going to see a whole tidal wave of people saying, no, I don't want to do these things. So there is the possibility you might land in a company that's like, okay, that might not be the right company for you. That might not give you enough stuff. But if you're demonstrating reflection and growth and how you want to grow yourself going forward, and you're able to be clear on what you want, that's the best foot you can put forward. And if someone is hung up on it, I just think continuing to redirect and focus it to, I'd rather not look backward. I'd rather talk to you about what I'm looking for going forward. It's important to me to grow and evolve in my career. I felt like I didn't have enough of those opportunities. I'd love to talk to you about what I'm looking for.
That's a really good redirect. Like, I don't want to look backwards. I want to look forwards. That's really good.
Right? Because who's going to keep digging in on that? I mean, someone will, but.
Oh, I would. Yeah, I would totally.
Should we role play this? Let's go.
Maybe we should, because here's the thing, because as a recruiter, it's very, very important to me to help make sure I'm not setting you up for failure in our role.
Sure.
I want to know that we are not, and so, okay, so let's say this. So from a recruiter perspective, I wouldn't say that every workplace is a toxic workplace, but every workplace definitely has their cons. Okay.
Sure.
So I might not be in a position to just blurt out the cons that we're up against. So instead of maybe spilling all of our, family drama. I'm sorry. I've never worked for a company that called us family, I don't think.
That's good. Don't do it.
I am going to ask you specific follow-up questions because I want to make sure whatever I feel like recruiting is timing and solving your pain points. So
Yeah.
I want to make sure that whatever your pain point is in your current organization is not going to be your pain point when you come over here. I'd like to alleviate all of your pain points, but we're always going to have a pain point.
Yeah.
So, so I will always dig and ask more specific questions. But the problem with my industry, with recruiting specifically, is there's no standard of recruiting, and you never know what kind of recruiter you're going to get. So I think someone kind of applying the questions that you've shared and kind of that outlook and try to, refocus the conversation is probably the best advice we could give anyone, because you never know what kind of recruiter you're going to get. However, if I get you on the phone, I'm definitely going to ask you specific questions.
Yeah. And I think that's fair. And I think you can call that out. But before I go into the call it out, one thing that's important to be prepared for is that, like a first date after a significant relationship, it may bomb. You are sometimes awkward until you figure out how to answer things, or you feel a trigger from your past experience, or you start to feel the trauma. Like your first interview might not go so smooth, and that's okay. That's incredibly common, because you're figuring out how the recruiter or the hiring manager is responding to your story. You're figuring out how much can I say, yeah, all of that. So I think first thing is, let's acknowledge that you may have some interviews that you come away like, man, I bombed that. Give yourself some grace. That's part of this, right? That's part of the whole imprint of the experience landing on you. I do think that the recruiter is going to dig, because, right, your example is perfect of you're wanting to not only make sure the company is getting the right fit, but you want to make sure the person is in a successful role. And so I think that as the person interviewing, there are some things that are in your control, and you can call out, hey, I totally appreciate why you're asking. You want to make sure this is the right fit for your organization. You don't want to bring in someone that's not aligned. I don't want that either. Here's what I'm looking for. Here's, call out the thing that might be awkward. The questions you ask are where you're going to be able to find out where some of the skeletons are buried. And when I say skeletons, it's really like, what are the thinking preferences? What are the way work is done? What are the normal things? Because there's a whole bunch of questions. In fact, they're coming out in an article, so we can give you all of them. Like, tell me about someone you're proud of. Well, that's going to tell you, is the hiring manager actually proud of someone, or is that a surprise, right? So
nobody,
right? Yeah. Or do you feel like disconnect during holidays or vacation? Describe a recent success or win. So a lot of it isn't even the answer. It's that, do they have an answer? Like, do they have a way to come up with this? Tell me about a disagreement or a conflict on the team. Okay, if someone can't talk about that, then that means the team probably never meets, never discusses stuff. Things are handed down to them. There's not the chance to have that conflict. And a quiet team is not a healthy team. Like, the healthy teams are messy, where they get to provide input and they build on ideas, and they sometimes even talk over each other. So there's a bunch of different questions you can ask that gets to the way work is done, that someone can't hide behind. And you're going to be able to see, do they have an answer or not? Like, I love always asking, tell me about someone you're proud of, because the manager is always like, huh. Because it's not something they're prepared for. And you'll see, do they mention themselves or do they mention someone else? So I feel like you have the chance to call out and acknowledge the recruiter where they might be digging, and say, I understand your intent. I've got the same intent. here's what I'm looking for, redirected of, I want to look forward, not backward. Here's what I've learned. Here's what I'm looking for. And I have a bunch of questions that will help me get a sense of what might be the right fit here.
I think that's fair. I know we're probably already going longer than we meant to go, but there's so much that we can cover. And I know that one of the things that I have seen on social media lately is, and I don't know that I disagree with it, signs in the job postings that show you that it's a toxic workplace. And the most recent one I keep seeing shared around and around is if they put fast-paced environment in the job description, right? And so
Scrappy,
I'm like,
quick learner, lean, embraces lean mindset. Yeah.
I don't know. Am I making excuses for toxic workplaces, or does that signal a toxic workplace? Because I feel like, I can get down with the fast-paced work environment. I can get down with, now, full transparency, the toxic workplace I just left, I knew it was toxic before I took the position. So maybe I am just attracted to toxic workplaces. So if I've ever worked for you before, you might need to improve your culture. Because that might be a sign that something's off if I wanted to work for you. I'm just kidding. So I don't know. What do y'all think about that?
I don't find like the fast paced one an issue. I don't know. Is there a reason why people are saying that? Because to me, some workplaces are.
I think the idea is that it's code for like, you don't have enough resources or supplies, you have way too much work and not enough things to do. I think do some people lie in job descriptions? Sure. Do some people
Yes.
have no idea how to write job descriptions and then they go Google
100%.
and copy and paste? I think that's more of the problem of people don't know how to do it. And so they're just like, well, let me go to Indeed and find a description and look, we're done. Let's go. So that's
one of my biggest pet peeves is the copy paste. Stop copying and pasting. Stop it.
We'll also link you to Katrina Kibben and 3 Ears Media, so you all can stop going to Indeed and just go to their company and get them to help you. Because
this is something that can be done for you or learned, and it really does help build better candidates, because a good job description should weed out people that it's not a fit for. But most people get it wrong at the start. I think I don't know that you can go on a job description alone, but a job description with the first conversation usually tells you. I've had toxic workplaces, and like you see things that are like, that's a little red flag. I'm just gonna put that in the back of my head and see where that goes. And then of course, everything that you think is exactly right. And you're like, congratulations, you're self-aware, I guess. I don't know.
You're self-aware and glutton for punishment. So let's go over a few red flags. So in that specific scenario, I can say that I knew before I even knew they were fully interested. When I was sitting in there in the interview, and the person interviewing me in the middle of the interview changed the job. He said, oh, by the way, I also want you to take over HR, which I thought was a funny way to say it. I try to avoid saying things like that in an interview because I don't want you to walk away feeling like you have the job in case you don't. And I left that interview going, I'm not quite sure if they're interested and if I'm going to get an offer or not, but I did. But he said, I want you to take over HR as well. And I was like, oh, well, that changes everything we've talked about, like compensation wise and stuff. So like, that is super important. I want everyone, if the job changes while you're interviewing, you can definitely change the terms of your compensation that you've asked for. So don't back down on that. And I said, but I just met your HR manager. So, and he said, oh, she doesn't know yet. And I was like, oh, this place is screwed up. Sign me up. But to be fair, I do like to go places where things need to be fixed because that's what I do. I'm a fixer. I don't know that I want to go to an organization that's got it perfectly figured out because that's going to be super boring to me. I want to come in and I want to help you and I want to fix and solve problems. And then when I run out of problems, I'm going to go work somewhere else. That's just how I am. But that was definitely the first red flag. And then I got an offer the next day. And they really wanted me to make a decision. They really wanted me to make a decision that day. It was on a Friday that I got the offer. And I was like, I need the weekend. And then when I accepted and said I wanted to put in a 3-week notice at my current job, they were like, we really need you in 2. And I was like, And we went back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. So I asked for more money and I got it. And I put in a 2-week notice instead of a 3-week notice. But so like, I knew I wasn't going into the best environment, but I also knew that I was bringing a lot of knowledge and experience and skills to the table to kind of help get them on track.
Yeah.
So I think by the time we got around to the red flags that caused my exit, I was like, my work here is done. Like I've done everything I can do. There are certain things about the makeup of this leadership and the perspective and values and style that are just never going to change. So these things that I brought to the table probably aren't the best solutions for them because they're going to just keep getting the same results if they don't change this core thing over here. So when it turned into me being screamed at, that's a red flag for me. Some people don't mind. I don't know why some people don't mind. That was a red flag for sure. And then it was, so if you're in this is really just a personal thing. I don't really have any other experience to point to this one, but like, let's say that all 3 of us, we run a company together. The second I start going to Jasmine and saying, don't tell Karen, but, and then I go to Karen and say, don't tell Jasmine, but something, I mean, that's off to me. So I don't like that.
But let me guess, in the lobby hangs a sign that says trust and transparency.
Right. And there's like a, 20-page ethics training that everyone gets on day 1, and it's just like, if you're willing to tell me something you don't want one of your business partners to know, or one of the other leaders to know, I for you. And I feel a line that I don't appreciate. And then, the last thing was, we didn't agree on the pitch for recruiting. I felt like it was lying to candidates. They did not feel like it was lying to candidates. And it was honestly so minor. And if I could tell you what it was, I would, but it was so minor that most people would not quit a job over it. But I just, all of that kind of pulled together. And 10 years ago, I probably would have stayed and still tried to prove myself. But I am fortunate enough to have really great friends, really supportive family, a really awesome network who will not let a day go by without me understanding what my worth is and what I bring to HR in general, let alone a specific employer. So all of that together, I think made it easy for me to say, well, there's no reason for us to drag this out.
Yeah. This
is enough. 3 days of screaming and hectic on top of all the other things I already knew were red flags. And I was ready to make that decision.
Which congratulations. I mean, you really made that decision in such a timely manner. So many people get caught in the story they're telling themselves, or get caught in thinking, I'm not going to be able to find the same level, pay, location, commute, something. And they stay stuck in the swirl until it goes way past an unhealthy point for them. So true congratulations for recognizing that and making that change, because that's a huge thing.
And to be fair, like all of those questions are still there.
Of course,
You
but
know,
that's the
like,
point. That's the important point for everyone to understand. It's not that you suddenly have the answers and then you can step away. It's that you have to step away because the environment no longer serves you, and you will figure out the other stuff.
and I think, like you were saying earlier, asking Jasmine those questions and just, mentioning that, her family and friends have probably noticed, like everyone immediately noticed that I was lighter. Even the team where I was after I turned in my resignation, they were just like, wow, you seem so much like, and I'm just like, wow, I didn't realize it was like, I knew it was stressing me out, but I didn't realize you could tell on our like staff meetings,
I knew a woman that she used to
So
joke that she was saving the gerbils and the hamsters of the world. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And she said, well, when people have a bad day, like they go home and they take it out on their pets and their gerbils and their hamsters. So I'm trying to change that for everyone. But it's true. We carry that around.
Listen, Christina's cat is not going to let
yeah,
Christina take anything out on her. Okay.
Yeah, this is not condoning
no.
violence against animals. I just meant, we carry it.
No,
But
I
everything,
just
Yeah,
wanna-
glad you threw that disclaimer there.
Isis is
everything
going to
you're
show her who's boss.
Everything
yeah.
you're describing here is a red flag, is really where your values came in conflict with the company. And that's what a toxic environment is. What your values are, what guides you each day, you're no longer able to practice them. You're constantly coming up against something that is calling them into question. And it's not even something as dramatic as lie or steal. It's just that, like, for you, trust and transparency is important. And the triangulation of going behind people's backs and hiding stuff and all of that, like, that's in conflict with your values. And so the red flags are when you start to feel that this doesn't feel right to me. This doesn't feel like I'm true to myself. I'm having to change things that I don't want. Or maybe you're finding yourself emotional each day, or you can't get out of bed. You no longer have resilience. The Sunday scaries go all the way through the work week. They're not just Sunday, it's ongoing. It doesn't have to be this like crazy thing that the company does, but over time you start to see like so much of that happening that you can't move forward.
So that's funny though. I guess I hadn't really thought of, your red flags are reflection of your values. And because I think we asked, because when we went through the story originally and we were like, have you ever worked in a toxic workplace? So what were the red flags? And so when people started giving us feedback on what the red flags were, and some people were asking us, what red flags should I be looking for? I had a really hard time trying to give anyone any guidance on what to look for. Cause I think that obviously there's the simple stuff, like how are people treated? And how do you feel? And do you feel valued, or are you, being, verbally beaten down every day, the simple stuff like that. But it makes sense that it could be different for all of us. All of our red flags could be different.
The simple thing is there's an ROI of work, and most simple formula is you should be netting out with more good days than bad. There's always a bad project, a stressful thing where you're going to have some bad days, and it's not through a fault of anyone. Red flags are usually associated with people and behaviors, right? It's not just unless it's, I don't know, a company like Enron that has policies or something that was doing incredibly harmful things. So it's more like when you notice that ROI slides, that maybe it's not every day is bad, but a part of every day is bad. And then that keeps changing and changing and changing. Like start to notice that of when was the last time you can say you had a good day? And what was that? And is there the opportunity to have more of those days? That's the easiest place to start, because after a while you'll start to see like, oh, yeah, no, I'm like way negative on this. Cause then you can start to think, well, why is that? And what is in conflict for me? And can that change? Or have I lost enough of the ingredients here to make a recipe that can work?
Hmm. Wow. Well, that's good stuff. So, I hope we're gonna have to go back to all of those people that asked us that question and send them the link to this and say, watch till the end. We're gonna be those people. Watch till the end. Jasmine, did we cover everything you wanted to cover tonight? I feel like there's so much.
I was going to say, I honestly, this conversation to me could go on, and Christina will tell y'all when, we had to reschedule this conversation from this past Sunday because due to some storms, my internet went out. So we had to reschedule. And I told Kristen, I was like, when Karen sent us an email, and I was like, I need to study to talk to this woman. Like, she is on it. Like, I need to get prepared. This conversation has been so amazing. Yes, we covered, everything, but there's so much more that we can continue talking about, honestly.
So then let's do a part 2. If if you're getting a lot of stuff come in, let's continue the conversation, because I live in the culture world and have for years of how do you make a work environment not be miserable? And like I said in my intro, like sometimes that's the leader, sometimes it's the team, sometimes it's the overall organization, sometimes it's, the things we say. So there's definitely layers to it. We talked all about tonight of how do you become aware and what do you think about, but I get the question a lot, which is definitely a part 2. What if I'm on a toxic team? What do I do? So there's like this whole other layer of what can I do to try to improve it? So happy to come back if you're interested.
Of course, for sure.
For sure.
We can get that scheduled. But thank you so much, Karen, for coming and speaking on BakedHR with us tonight. It's been a whirlwind of a week since Christina has been dropping bombs all week long.
I'm kind of glad you dropped your bomb. It made this conversation a little easier, but I think it's a good role model for people too, to realize, as Kenny Loggins would say, you got to know when to hold them and know when to fold them.
It was totally unplanned for me to drop that bomb, Jasmine, but I had to share it with everyone eventually, because that's just, everything from like when I started blogging to the tweets I share, just about, hey, here's how Christina did it, and maybe don't do it this way.
Or maybe do.
Or maybe do. I don't know.
Well, everyone, thank you for watching tonight's episode on BakedHR. Make sure that you are following us on Instagram at BakedHR, where we go live on Sunday nights. And just do a quick chat, tell you all maybe what the topic is, or we just talk about random things and rant. Make sure that you like and subscribe to the YouTube channel, that you're watching right now, BakedHR. And then don't forget, if you have a question for us, if you have a topic that you'd like us to discuss, or if you would like to be a guest on BakedHR, to send us an email at bakedhr@gmail.com. And so until next time, we will see y'all later.